You're listening to The Unsafe Bible with Pastor Ken Brown.
The Lord is telling Isaiah that he has to continue with the message, even as he begins to see the devastation that's going to be caused by Israel and Syria during the reign of Ahaz, and it's going to be rather significant. He's to continue with the message, even as the Assyrian army takes the northern kingdom completely captive and takes them out into exile. He continues the message, even as the Assyrian army runs amok across Judah, and all that's left is Jerusalem.
When you see God's judgment towards our nation, do you ever want to give up? When people mock the Word of God and those who follow God, do you get discouraged? In today's message, Pastor Ken reminds believers that God does disperse judgment to those who reject Him, and he reminds all of us that those who reject God's Word will grow harder and harder in heart. However, God instructed Isaiah to continue sharing his message regardless of the destruction and desolation that he witnessed. Well, let's join Pastor Ken in the book of Isaiah, chapter 6, as he continues his message, Isaiah's Commission.
You will eat the flesh of your sons and the flesh of your daughters. I will destroy your high places and cut down your incense altars, and I'll stack your dead bodies on top of the lifeless bodies of your idols. I'll abhor you. I will lay your cities waste and make your sanctuaries desolate, and I'll refuse to smell your soothing aromas. I myself will make the land desolate, and your enemies who live in it will be appalled. I will scatter you among the nations and unsheath the sword after you, so your land will become desolate and your cities will become a waste. Then the land will make up for its Sabbaths all the days it lies desolate while you're in the land of your enemies, and the land will rest and make up its Sabbaths, which is why the nation was in captivity in Babylon for 70 years. It made up all those Sabbaths that were lost. The Lord is telling Isaiah that he has to continue with the message, even as he begins to see the devastation that's going to be caused by Israel and Syria during the reign of Ahaz, and it's going to be rather significant. He's to continue with the message, even as the Assyrian army takes the northern kingdom completely captive and takes them out into exile. He continues the message, even as the Assyrian army runs amok across Judah, and all that's left is Jerusalem. All are coming events, but nowhere near what verse 11 hints at. What we're talking about is destroyed cities, empty houses, and a land that is desolate. And that's bad enough. But then we come to verse 12. The Lord has removed men far away, and the forsaken places are many in the midst of the land. So not only is the entirety of Judah and Israel to be destroyed and all the homes laid waste, not only is the countryside to be devastated and uncared for, and literally become a desert, but there will also be an exile. And the Lord is telling Isaiah that another verse in Deuteronomy is about to be fulfilled. That's in Deuteronomy 28:64. Moreover, the Lord will scatter you among all peoples from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth, and you will serve other gods, wood and stone, which you or your fathers have not known. The beautiful thing is that we've actually been witnessing since 1948 the fulfillment of another set of prophecies that are in the book of Ezekiel that has the people returning to the land. But Isaiah is not talking about that. He's talking about them being judged and sent away. So again, Isaiah, thank you for asking, but to make sure it's clear, how long is this again? Well, it's until termination. The message resulting from this vision of God's majesty is that Israel will be nullified. He's basically going to eliminate the nation, and God's not going to protect them anymore. And he's actually going to do everything he can to undo them. Verse 13 tells us how thorough the undoing will be. Yet there will be a 10th portion in it, and it'll be subject to burning like a terebinth or an oak whose stump remains when it's felled. The holy seed is its stump. A 10th. I mean, you take a look at the number of people and work through the math of how many were in the land prior to the Babylonians coming and taking people away. And then you come back and you see how many return with Ezra, and it's a small number compared to the number that were taken away. Verse 13, there will be a tenth portion in it. It'll again be subject to burning like a terebinth or an oak, whose stump remains when it's felled. The holy seed is its stump. Now, amid this promise of devastation, you see grace. A stump will still be there. It can grow again. The nation will grow again. We're seeing that happen today. The nation of Israel is growing. That stump has life in it. It's starting to come back. The idea of a believing remnant, though, carries on in the New Testament, and Paul even refers to it in Romans 11, verse 5. God is not done with Israel yet. He's just not. There will be a believing remnant at all times, and when he returns at the end of the tribulation, there will still be a believing remnant in the land at that point. And with that, we end this pivot point of chapter 6, which is a pivot of the entire book. I mean, the first 5 chapters were bad enough, but chapter 6 is a pivot to a totally different message. So here we are. Uzziah has died. This is the year that this happened. Jotham, who served as regent after Uzziah, and Uzziah actually contracted leprosy because he had a pride problem. So he was regent for 12 years. He continued to serve as king of Judah for 16 years. And he was a good king, just like Uzziah. He loved the Lord. He served the Lord. In 2 Chronicles 27, verses 2 to 7, we see a little bit about that. Now, the chapter 6, Uzziah has died. So then we come to chapter 7. In chapter 7, Ahaz is the king. So this is some background for you. In 2 Chronicles 27, verses 2 to 7, he did what was upright before the Lord. This is Jotham, according to everything that Uzziah his father did. But he did not enter into the temple of the Lord. Well, his dad did and got leprosy, so I understand him not going in. But that caused a problem. And still the people kept being corrupt. Did you catch that? This is in 2 Chronicles. He built the high gate of the house of the Lord and built much on his wall, that is Ophel. He built cities in the region of Judah, and both buildings and towers in the wood. He fought against the king of the sons of Ammon and prevailed against them, so he had some successful military conquests. And each year Ammon would give him 100 talents of silver and 10,000 koran of wheat and 10,000 of barley. Each year the king of Ammon would bring these to him in the first year, in the second, and the third. Jotham became strong because he prepared his way before the Lord his God. The remainder of the annals of Jotham and the war and his activities, look, they're written in the document of the kings of Judah and Israel. He was a good and ungodly king, just like his dad. But because of what happened to Dad, when Dad got a little bit of pride, he entered the temple and did something he shouldn't have done. And he wound up getting leprosy because of it. Well, because of that, Jotham never went in at all. He worshiped from afar. He wouldn't go to the temple to worship. He was fearful of getting leprosy. It's possible that that was what sent Ahaz, Jotham's son, in a totally different direction. Because if Dad wasn't going to temple, then son wasn't going to temple either. When Jotham died, and he was only 41, he wasn't very old, his son Ahaz became king, and Ahaz was 20 when he became king. He did not follow Dad or his granddad in following Yahweh at all. However, just prior to Jotham's death, the king of Israel and the king of Syria made a preemptive attack trying to take Judah, and they failed. In those days, the Lord began to send Rezin, king of Aram, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, against Judah. And that's in 2 Kings 15:37. Shortly after that attack, Jotham died. And we're going to find out that Ahaz, his son, was a much weaker king. So that gets us to chapter 7, and we can cover maybe the first 4 verses. But the theme of chapter 7 is the same theme that we should be following every day right now. Don't let fear rule you. That's Ahaz's problem. He lets fear rule him, and he makes some incredibly stupid decisions as a result. 2 Chronicles chapter 28, verses 1 to 4. Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, so he only reigned till he was 36. And he did not do right in the sight of the Lord as David his father had done. But he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel. That's the northern kingdom. That's the kingdom that's not worshiping Yahweh. That's the kingdom that worships the Baals and does child sacrifice to Molech. He also made molten images for the Baals. Moreover, he burned incense in the valley of Ben Hinnom and burned his sons in fire. So he actually sacrificed his sons to Molech, according to the abominations of the nations whom the Lord had driven out before the sons of Israel. He sacrificed and burned incense on the high places, on the hills, and under every green tree. I don't know if he nailed every green tree in Israel, but it sounds like he was very, very busy burning incense to false gods. It only took Ahaz 16 years to completely undo the previous 60 years of godly kings. And in reality, it only took a couple of years. It helps us see that the heart of the people, they were already far from God. And when they had someone show up who was the ruler whose heart was the same place, they thought it was wonderful. And it became politically correct at that point to not worship God. And they thought that was the right thing to do. 2 Chronicles chapter 28, verses 5 to 8. Wherefore the Lord his God delivered him into the hand of the king of Aram. And they defeated him and carried away from him a great number of captives and brought them to Damascus. So there was a follow-on battle that does take place with Israel and with Syria. And it doesn't come into Jerusalem, but they are able to ravage the countryside. He was delivered into the hand of the king of Israel, who inflicted him with heavy casualties. For Pekah the son of Remaliah slew in Judah 120,000 in one day. Now they had a 330,000 man army, and they just lost a third of it in one day. All valiant men, because they had forsaken the Lord God of their fathers. And Zikri, the mighty man of Ephraim, slew Maaseiah, the king's son, and Azrikam, the ruler of the house of Elkanah, the second to the king. The sons of Israel carried away captive of their brethren 200,000 women, sons, and daughters, and took a great deal of spoil from them and brought the spoil to Samaria. Now, this is not the defeat of the city of Jerusalem, but shortly after Jotham's death, there's another move by these two northern powers. Of course, the one is Israel and the other one is Syria, just north in Damascus. And they attacked Judah, and they were able to take many of the surrounding communities. The defeat eliminates the professional army. That nice standing army that lasted for 60 years, it's gone. 120,000 dead in one battle. I mean, that destroyed the army. Their leader, Ahaz, he wasn't a very good leader. He was totally inadequate to the task. Under Jotham, the incursion was pushed back. Remember, we talked about that. A few years later, less than 4, another incursion causes the destruction of a third of the army of Judah and a huge number of captives being taken north. And if not for the prophet Oded in 2 Chronicles 28:9, reminding Israel of their sin and their sinful state and causing the captives to be returned, the two armies, I mean, it wouldn't have been a good thing at all. They wound up returning all those captives. But these two armies then ultimately move on Jerusalem, and they're unable to take that. That's where we are when we come to chapter 7. In 2 Kings 16, verses 5 and 6, at that time, King Rezin of Syria and King Pekah, son of Remaliah of Israel, attacked Jerusalem. So this is just prior to this attack. When we come to chapter 7, the countryside has already been razed pretty much by those two armies. A third of the army is gone. Ahaz has proven that he's worthless as a military leader. And there is an attack that's about to take place in Jerusalem. Now, we see the results of it here in 2 Kings. It says they're unable to conquer him. But at that time, King Rezin of Syria recovers Elat for Syria, and he drove the Judahites from there. And the Syrians arrived in Elat and lived there to this very day when 2 Kings was written. That did not stop those forces from ravaging the Judean countryside, but Jerusalem wasn't conquered. But we learn from 2 Chronicles 28, verses 5 and 6, what took place just before. Not only was the army of Judah decimated, but because of that, the local powers who had been in subjection to Judah, this is not just Israel and this is not just Syria that's a problem. There's other powers that had been defeated and that were paying tribute, like Ammon, they stopped. Edom attacked and took captives and quit paying money back to Judah. The Philistines did the same thing. So King Ahaz has a problem. He's so far from Yahweh. He's not even going to Yahweh for a solution. He's sacrificing his children to a false god. He has turned to Baals. He's doing everything that he shouldn't be doing. And this brings us again to chapter 7. Now, in chapter 7, we're somewhere in the period of 734 to 732 BC. That's when this war takes place. The countryside's been ravaged, and Jerusalem's not been taken. Why is this taking place? Well, okay. The geopolitical situation at this point in time, Judah had been asked to be part of a military coalition against Assyria by both Syria and Israel, and Judah said, no, don't want to. These two nations are moving against Jerusalem to try and force the issue, and they've already gone through the countryside. King Ahaz, when we come to chapter 7, verse 1, is inspecting the city waterworks, likely in anticipation of the city and the siege on the city. Now, Hezekiah would later build a tunnel from these waterworks into Jerusalem so they wouldn't have to deal with it anymore. But at this point, that tunnel's not built. So the Gihon Springs are still your source of water. And he's looking to make sure that that's still there. Now, the king is not just worried about security. He is frightened. He has been beaten in battle. He has lost his professional army. He has proven that he is a lousy leader. And he's intimidated by this northern threat. He's got a problem. He's scared spitless. Let's put it that way, okay? And this is the leader. He's probably 22 at this point. So he's so scared that he's about to make a major policy decision to appeal for help from Assyria. And that's not going to be a good thing. So we come to verse 1 of chapter 7. That's the background. Now it came about in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah. Isaiah wants us to know who this guy is. King of Judah, that Rezin, the king of Aram, he's the king of Syria in Damascus, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, that's the northern kingdom, went up to Jerusalem to wage war against it, but could not conquer it. So if you're doing any study or research into this time period, it will be called the Syro-Ephraimitic War. If you like having long terms, it's a civil war. Okay, this is the civil war that started when Solomon's son could not keep the nation together, and it flares up into open warfare from time to time, and this is one of those times where it flares up into open warfare. So here are the players. We have Ahaz. He's the king of Judah, the southern kingdom. He's a bad king, doesn't love the Lord. We have Rezin. He's the king of Aram, also known as Syria. The capital is in Damascus. He's a Gentile. He worships whatever. We can go into it, but I'm not going to bother. Pekah, he's the king of Israel who's in Samaria, and he's worshiping the Baals, and he's worshiping Molech, and they haven't been worshiping Yahweh for over 200 years. He's a really bad Jewish king. So now we come to verse 2 of chapter 7. When it was reported to the house of David, saying, the Arameans have camped in Ephraim, his heart and the hearts of his people shook as the trees of the forest shake with the wind. They were scared. Not only was he scared, but his people were scared. This is an army that had just in recent history, in the last year or so, had killed 120,000 people and taken 200,000 people captive. And now they're coming again. Syrian forces haven't even moved towards Judah yet. They're simply camping and getting ready. That's enough to cause panic in his heart, as well as all of those in Judah, because Jerusalem's not been affected yet. They haven't been attacked yet. Ahaz is terrified. He is fearful. Terror and fear can mold decision-making that somebody makes from being a wise decision to being something that's pragmatic and may not be the wisest thing to do at all. It may cause more problems than it actually solves. Fear-driven decisions, when one is not looking to the Lord for wisdom, results in some strange decisions. And we got examples of that in the Bible. For example, because of what Yahweh did for the nation of Israel with the Red Sea crossing and the destruction of the largest military force in the world at the time, Egypt, the people of Canaan were scared and downright fearful of Israel. Yahweh told them this is going to be the case once military action started. And we see in Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 25, this very day I'll begin to fill all the people of the earth with dread and to terrify them when they hear about you. They'll shiver and shake in anticipation of your approach. Joshua chapter 2, verses 10 and 11. The spies go in to spy out the land. They spend a couple of days with Rahab, and then they come back. And Rahab tells them this: for we heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you left Egypt, and how you annihilated the two Amorite kings, Sihon and Og, on the other side of the Jordan. And Og was a big boy. He was 13 feet tall. When we heard the news, we lost our courage, and no one could even breathe for fear of you. They're scared. They're really scared. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on earth below. She recognized that. So the people of Jericho, because of their fear, did they run away? Did they go someplace else? Did they try and escape? No, they hid out in their town, fearful of what was about to happen. And due to the fear, they hid in this town while for 7 days, the entire army of Israel performed a parade each day, walking around the town. And on the seventh day, they paraded 7 times around the town. And they played some musical instruments. And everybody but Rahab's family died as a result of it. The city burned. The archaeological evidence has been found of that. But the people were scared. And they were they were scared to the point that they would not leave. They wouldn't do anything to protect themselves or to help themselves. The people of Gibeon, this is another example. They were living elsewhere in the land, and they saw this. And they made the decision, because of their fear, to lie and deceive the nation of Israel due to their fear. They extracted a peace treaty and a mutual aid treaty all before Israel found out that they weren't from a long way away, they were from over the hill. And when told they would be slaves serving the nation, they were okay with that because they were still alive. They made a decision that may not have been the best decision in their interests, because at this time there are a lot of folks leaving the land. They're going elsewhere in the world, going to Cyprus and elsewhere in the Mediterranean, but they actually cut a peace deal with the land, and they lied to do it. The best contrast, I think, between man's fear and the attitude of the believer when confronted with the same source of fear is in 2 Kings chapter 6, verses 14 to 20. This is a story that goes back to the northern kingdom, and it's involving a guy by the name of Elisha. He's a prophet of the Lord. The army of Syria, there's that army again, they had been trying to attack the northern kingdom time and time again, and Elisha was giving such good information to the king of Israel that was almost like he had listening devices and cameras inside the courtroom of the Syrian king. And it kind of bugged him, because Yahweh was providing real-time intel to Elisha, and he shared it with Israel. So this is the result. This is what they decide to do. The Assyrian king decides that he's going to go and attack one man. He's going to attack Elisha with his entire army.
Because you decided to stay tuned, you've just been a part of the Unsafe Bible with Pastor Ken Brown. Do you know how glad it makes our hearts to know you're investing time in your relationship with Jesus? So much. In fact, would you connect with us and share a little about what's been happening in your life and how this radio ministry has affected you? The unsafebible.com has a space for you to do just that. Go to the Connect tab at the side and then click on the Connect card. Once there, fill out the form, and then we'll be sure to touch base with you. Pastor Ken's message from Isaiah today left me reflecting on my own life and how I treat people. Do I treat them how I want to be treated? Do I give them the cold shoulder when I feel like it? Or Do I choose kindness over retaliation? Isaiah was one of the major prophets that confronted some of these common issues we still face today. You don't want to miss any of these teachings. Trust me. If you already have, don't sweat it. We have your bases covered. Just go to theunsafebible.com and click on Media. There you'll find this and other messages to listen to. If Go 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 is your middle name and you can't seem to find a still moment, you can follow us via Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We'd also like to personally invite you to attend one of our services. Find all the information you need, including directions, at our website. And just in case you've forgotten, it's theunsafebible.com. We hope to meet you soon. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. Come back again for more of the Unsafe Bible.